On this week's episode of the Crash and Debt podcast, building financial literacy for vulnerable communities. So, welcome back to this week's episode of the Crash and Debt podcast. My name is Shawn Yesner, owner and founder of Yesner Law. And normally I would have your financial coach, George Corbello, here with me, but he got called away to something else that he had to do. So, I am back to sort of flying solo this week. George will be back next week and we'll get his unique perspectives. But I'm not entirely flying solo because I do have a guest on this week's show. So we've we've all heard about this the big beautiful bill, and there's a lot of different interpretations. There's a lot of different thoughts. There's a lot of different pros and cons on both sides. I want to kind of avoid this being a political show, but I do want to get into some of the details of the big beautiful bill. I want to talk to our guest about how that might impact vulnerable communities, but then again, how we can use some of those things to help financially vulnerable communities. So my guest this week is Michelle Campbell. She was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska, began her educational journey in South Dakota before relocating to Atlanta, Georgia to continue her studies. During her academic pursuits, she launched a real estate investment firm, marking the beginning of her entrepreneurial path. Over the years, Michelle expanded her ventures into various industries, including horticulture, where she founded an interiorscape company, and logistics, where she established a commercial trucking business. Drawing on the insights and expertise gained across these diverse fields, she transitioned into a career in the financial services industry. She's also the author of Bluebird, a memoir that candidly explores themes of trauma, heartbreak, and the resilience found in life struggles. She's also the founder of a nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering individuals through financial literacy and fostering economic stability. In her free time, which it doesn't sound like she has that much of, but in her free time, she enjoys traveling, cooking, exploring diverse cuisines, organizing, dancing, indulging in spa treatments, and spending quality time with her cherished Pomeranian. Welcome, Michelle Campbell, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be an exciting conversation. And yeah, like it shouldn't be political at all, but I mean, we have to talk about what's going on. This is our real life now.
Right, right. We have to have discussion about it because we can't learn what to do. We can't learn how to be within where we are without discussion, without debate, without all that stuff. So why don't we just start out with the big question? What is the big beautiful bill for those of you that have like me that spend so much time working and not much time with the news? What is the big beautiful bill?
I mean, of course, like the I guess correct answer or the answer that everybody wants to like just hear the generic answer, let me say that, is like that's our new tax law. But what is it? And I really appreciate the time that I've spent, the 20 plus years in tax law. Um, Back before I even started getting certified and then getting credentialed, I didn't even know that this would be my career path and that I would be here today. But because I was an entrepreneur at an early age and I didn't have enough money back then to hire someone like me, I learned tax code all on my own. And so, what I find interesting is every tax law, I can remember, oh, well, in the previous tax law, we had this. And so for me, that kind of makes me feel better about it. But yeah, our new tax code, that's what the word is, the big, beautiful bill. And there's a lot of people that have already started making acronyms for it.
So it was signed into law on July 4th,
Mhm.
ironically. Um, is it effective now, or when does it take effect?
So it's technically effective for when our new tax, it wasn't supposed to, it's actually supposed to be effective in 2026, but things that are happening in 2025, you know how the IRS goes back and they kind of whatever is in code by December 31st, that's what it's going to be. So there is going to be there are going to be some things that affect us for filing in 2026, which would be the year of 2025's taxes. But officially, fully, we will be in the throes for tax year 2026.
Okay. And we're talking about the big, beautiful bill in context of a financially vulnerable community. So I think I have in my head what that means. But when you say financially vulnerable community, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about there's this almost like I feel like in society, there is this unspoken quiet haves and have nots. And I don't mean it of, the uber wealthy and people that are in the poverty bracket. I mean it as working individuals, sometimes married, sometimes single, but making a decent wage that still are not financially stable, cannot make ends meet. To me, that's the vulnerable community, because when you are in the poverty level, there are so many programs out there, government programs out there that will help you. But I was that demographic. I didn't have any children. God forbid I was working. At one time, I had like 4 jobs. And so I could not get any kind of assistance. Nobody would help me. And I just felt like, so who's out there helping this demographic? And it would have even been worse if I was married. I feel like that's the most vulnerable.
Yeah, those I see those all the time, those
Mhm.
paycheck to paycheck
Right.
type people, the people that one major um downturn, one
Hmm.
major negative, the
Hmm.
loss of a big client,
Hmm.
getting I've got a consultation coming up here in a couple of weeks with a business owner that had one of his employees get into a car accident, and the employee was not even authorized to be driving the company vehicle at the time
Hmm.
she got into a car accident, and she was driving it outside of the territorial limits of the company. And
Wow.
so they're coming to me saying, should we can't survive a, a,
Hmm.
a lawsuit for the damages caused by the car. Should we shut the company down?
Hmm.
Even with insurance, we may not be able to survive. And so
Right.
those are the kinds of people that I'm finding more and more are coming to me for consultations. The people that
Hmm.
are making 6 figures a year, but are still negative every month.
Right, right, exactly. To me, that was me, and my heart goes out because I mean, you're doing everything that you can do. And I mean, in my book, I talk about where I filed for bankruptcy 4 times, not because I was reckless, not because I was irresponsible or anything. It was back then I drove for a living, and it was just to keep a vehicle. Like, as dumb as it sounds, it was just to keep a vehicle. It was the only way that I could keep a vehicle. And my attorney tried to talk me out of it. I mean, we talked for hours, and he was like, please don't do this. It's going to mess up your credit. It's going to be on your credit report for 7 years. And I was like, I don't have another option. And I had to keep refiling, because then it's like, do you fix the car so that you can drive for a living, or do you make this bankruptcy payment? Which one takes priority?
Yeah.
So, okay, so I'll fix the car so that I can continue to make money and work. And oh, so now it's going to get repossessed and they're coming to get it. I guess I'll just file another bankruptcy. I mean, to me, that is the most vulnerable. And society does not see it. It's almost like we're hidden.
Right.
Nobody talks about it, you
Well,
know?
I mean, it's not something that you really want to publicize. I mean, one of the big questions that I get when I'm talking to a client about a bankruptcy is, are people going to know that I filed? And
Hmm.
while it is public record, no one's going to know that you filed unless, number one, they go looking for it, or number two, you tell them.
Right.
So the number of times someone files really doesn't. I mean, there are certain rules, and the bankruptcy code has certain rules in terms of, how many times can you file, and
Right.
if the judge or the trustee or whoever believes that you're taking advantage of the bankruptcy system, the
Hmm.
the bankruptcy court has the power to give sanctions. But I totally get it. I have people sit here in my office every day saying, well, if I can't afford my car payments and I have to give the car back, how am
Mhm.
I going to get around? I met a guy yesterday who lost his car. His car was repossessed. And I said, well, did you get a new car? He said, no. I said, well, how are you getting around? He said, Uber.
Mhm. Which is super
So,
expensive.
right. I mean, you might as well buy a car for what you pay
Right,
in Uber every day, every week, every month. You may as well
right,
just buy a car.
right.
So, so what is it that what do you think people that find themselves in this scenario, people that find themselves worried about the big beautiful bill, people that
Mhm.
are worried about how am I going to make ends meet? Where is my next paycheck coming from? Where is the next amount of money coming from? What would you tell them to help ease that anxiety?
Um, First of all, calm down and stop watching the news because it's almost like clickbait, and everybody is saying these. They're almost like fear of losing everybody just to get views. So first, calm down. I mean, it's not going to be that bad. I mean, to me, our previous tax law, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, was horrible. So I can't imagine, once this really gets into play, it going to be much less. First of all, calm down. Second, start where you are and know what you can do and what you can't do and start where you are. Um, what I will say is it is more important now than it ever was to find a way to either get out of debt or lower your debt and start that emergency fund because we don't know what's going to happen. Don't immediately go and pull all your money out of all your stocks and sell all your, stock. People are panicking right
Yeah.
now. And I'm thinking, no, because honestly, it is the where interest is not good if you have like mortgage interest or credit card interest or property taxes or something. But if you're trying to make money, interest is awesome right now. Don't pull your money out of places, keep it there. Dividend investments, make your money right now because we don't know what's going to happen. But first, calm down.
Yeah. I say calm down. I also think, like you said, don't rely on social media for your
Hmm.
advice. I mean, George and I have done shows before where we have gone on to TikTok and we've played different TikTok influencers, for lack of a better word, and the advice that they're giving is just flat out wrong.
Yeah, don't get your
So,
news on social media first of all.
right. Don't get your news from social media. Don't get your advice from social media.
No.
I had a mentor of mine, trust but verify. So if you hear something that sounds good on social media,
Hmm.
investigate it more. Don't just blindly say, well, that's now what I'm going to do.
Right, right.
Investigate it more and see if it's right for you. But one of the things you touched upon, one of the things we talked about prior to recording, um, the tax code is complicated.
Mm.
Um, and so there is a disconnect. I even believe there's a disconnect, even at some point with the bankruptcy code, with the immigration laws, with there's a lot of laws. My impression of our legislatures, they do good work until you show them something bright and shiny, and then that diverts their attention. So what would you say about either the current tax law or some of the changes in the big beautiful bill versus how that's actually going to impact people in their day-to-day lives?
So for me, when it's written, and it depends on your interpretation, but I mean, if you just go to irs.gov and start reading, it sounds like all hell is breaking loose. And either, you're going to be one of the haves or the have nots, and oh my God, what do we do? But when I read tax code, I dissect it because I have to, line by line, word by word, because it is very specific. And what I'm paying attention to is the brackets and how they're moving and what you can do and what is no longer allowed. And so I think that a lot of people are, on social media or they're trying to read this big, beautiful bill someplace else that's not on irs.gov because reading it there is confusing. And, there's almost like a trigger word that they read, and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to lose all my money. They said that they're going to take all of our retirement. And I'm thinking, no, that's not what it said. It said, for if this is your AGI, your adjusted gross income, then you may be taxed at a higher rate. Or it said, if you are under, or if you're over the age of 50, then this might happen, but it depends on your bracket. So when they're educating it, and when they're describing it, and when individuals are reading it, they're assuming that they qualify, that this means, it's all blanketed, and they're talking about everybody. It may not even affect you. You may not actually even have anything to worry about. And so, that's where that first, like, calm down comes from. And everybody that's worth listening to, all of us, whether you're a financial advisor, you're an attorney, you are even life coaches, myself as an enrolled agent, bankruptcy attorneys, you can look us up. We are listed on a government website that says that, no, we know what we're talking about. So, all the people on social media that you're listening to, see if they're listed, and if they're not, probably don't believe what they're saying.
Okay. Which I think is really, again, trust, but verify.
Right. Do your due diligence.
So where do you think people have um, the most misunderstandings about how money works or how money systems work?
There's a lot of misunderstandings, but I think that first, one, assuming that we're all like just in one ocean, and all these different things in the tax code affect all of us. Some people won't feel anything, honestly. And because it really just depends on your bracket, it depends on your AGI, it depends on your bracket. So, let's calm down there. There's a lot of misconceptions, one, about making money, and investing, to be specific. I remember when I learned investing, I felt so stupid, and I was so mad at myself, because I'm thinking I should have been doing this a long time ago. I thought, first of all, you had to have a ton of money to start, and you don't. I thought that it was going to be a huge risk no matter what. And um, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I did just watch the Bernie Madoff documentary. But there are some risk-proof investments. I'm not talking about stocks. I'm talking about just making your money and interest. But that's a misconception too. And so, piece by piece, uh, group by group, I mean, you have to know what affects you, and not just, throw yourself in. A lot of Big Beautiful Bill, majority of it, I feel like the people in the middle, even though I've been told, I refuse to accept it, but I've been told that what's the, what did they always call the middle bracket? The
Middle class?
Middle class. I've been told, and I've been being told that, oh, there is no more middle class. You're either, and I'm like, no, no, no. I just think that the bar is moving to what is considered middle class now. And
Right.
actually, middle class has a higher AGI now, which is nuts, to where, I mean, you could work your butt off and make, 40, 50, 60, 80,000. That's not middle class anymore, but that's going to benefit you in this big, beautiful bill.
How?
Well, because a lot of the changes that I've seen and how I can understand them, and even with um, what messes us up, actually, is Tax Cuts and Jobs Acts. To me, in my opinion, the worst thing that could have ever been done was to take away the personal exemption. It changed life as we know it. We've never, ever not had that. And as a tax professional, it took me an entire year to actually understand its impact. And, oh, well, we're gonna raise the standard deduction, and that's gonna be great. Okay, but now, so if you make 200,000, and yeah, you raise the standard deduction, I mean, you're still now, and then you're taking out that 15 and 20% tax bracket, so then you're jumping from 10, 12 to 22. That hurt.
Yeah.
So I feel like, okay, that 80,000, well, that still doesn't have you in that 22% tax bracket. That's what you need to kind of stray from. Once you're over that, there's kind of nothing that you can do. Um, I advise everybody to start a business. My dog has a business for tax purposes, and she, at first I'm just like, okay, because we need some deductions, but she's actually making money. So,
I think I'd be afraid of that. If I had a dog and I started a business for my dog, I think I'd be afraid that the dog would end up being more profitable than me.
she's making money. Like, she had over 1,000 followers in like less than a month, and I'm like struggling to get 100. I'm like, she's making money. There's money in the dog business, dog
This is
fluencers.
this is
But
the Pomeranian, right?
yes, 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 yeah, she's making money, and it's almost like she knows it. It's hilarious. But
Well,
so
I
yeah.
should be. Where is she? I should be interviewing her on this episode. Why am I
unless you
interviewing you?
unless you have some treats. I mean,
I don't think the treats would translate well over Zoom.
yeah.
But
But no, I mean, because that bar on that middle class is moving, I think some of the wrong people are worried about what's going to happen. High earners, I mean, you have something to be worried about, but actually, I feel like you're more in the clear because there's a lot more tax breaks available for higher earners than there have ever been.
okay.
Especially if you're investing when we're talking about capital gains and those kind of taxes.
So you may have already touched on it, but I know you have 5 simple steps that anyone can take to protect themselves financially if they're afraid of what's coming down the pipe from the legislation. So
Mhm.
what are those 5 steps?
So the first one is, just calm down. But then after that, know your numbers. And when I say know your numbers, you need to, before even creating a budget, you need to know your credit score. You need to know the interest that you're paying on everything. Like you need to know your bottom lines. And then go ahead and create that budget. And I am somebody that always thinks optimistically. I mean, you can tell me it's raining, and I'm like, no, it's not, like in my face. And so, work with what you have. Instead of just being in fight or flight, work with what you have. And after you know your numbers and you've created that budget, start there. You can't get to a you can't wait until you get to a certain space to then say, okay, well then, once I save money and I have the debt paid off. I mean, no, you have to just start where you are and then just keep reevaluating it. You actually honestly um, should be looking at your finances or some kind of spreadsheet, your budget at least weekly, um, because it puts it in your face, and you almost in a way are getting some kind of instant gratification with being able to see that. Dave Ramsey calls it the debt snowball, and I love his debt strategy. But you're able to see that go down if you have debt. If you don't have any debt and you're investing, you're able to then see that growth in your investments, week to week, and that kind of like eases anxiety, I feel like, a little bit. So calm down, know your numbers, um, and start the budget. A lot of people do not like the B word, but there are so many budgets out there, and there's free templates everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and start where you are, and then reevaluate.
Yeah. And I think it's like you said, there's a ton of different budget templates. There's a ton of different um, educational materials out there around budgeting. And again, you don't necessarily have to use a specific or particular type of budget.
Right,
You can take whatever budget you have and customize it. The important thing is that you're using it, which
right,
gives you that track, which gives you that track to run on that plan.
yeah.
So one question that I know George is always big on mindset and
Hmm.
those types of things. So why don't we shift a little bit and talk about mindset in terms of the positive mindset and the shift in mindset that you need to go from fear or survival or paycheck to paycheck, what mindset shift is necessary to go from that space of fear to a space of stability?
So I lived this. And once I got through all of it, I knew that I lived it for a purpose. I didn't know that I would end up working in finance, but I pride myself on living it and being able to relate to clients that are going through different things. Because, I mean, nobody probably want to listen to me if they're telling me I filed a bankruptcy and I'm like, oh, well, I'm so sorry. Well, how much money do you have to pay for this? So, but I lived this. And so I remember just, first of all, feeling alone, being extremely depressed. And it was hard to have a positive mindset about anything. And you hide that from the world. I was hiding it from friends, from family. Nobody knew anything that I was doing with. So I was extremely isolated and felt alone, which put me in this deep, dark depression. My answer to that is everybody has to have money to live. We all have bills, utilities, groceries. We all need money for something. And why aren't we talking about the one thing that connects us? Why is it that we can go to lunch and we can talk about vacations? We can talk about football game that was on the other day. We can talk about all these different things, but we're not like, so what's your credit score? And I feel but I feel like we should be having these conversations because I feel like it would start like another Me Too movement on, I had to file for bankruptcy. Me too, and then you don't feel so alone in this cycle of debt maybe that you have going on. And I feel like that's where more of the positivity comes from. I just wrote a blog post saying that when you have fear and shame and judgment present in your life, it's actually not what you're internally feeling. It's actually somebody else's opinion that they put on you. And by you feeling that fear and that shame, it's like you have agreed to it. So don't agree. I mean, it's easier said than
Yeah.
done.
No, it's sometimes the best answers are the simplest answers.
Right,
Just
but
don't
let's
agree.
not agree. Let's not agree. But I feel like if we start having those honest, transparent um, conversations with people that you love and that you trust, eventually some of that fear and that shame and that isolation and that judgment goes away, and you're able to maybe think more positively about it. Because once I was able to, okay, face what I was going through and admit it, write it down. I had opened years and years of unopened mail because in survival mode, I couldn't pay a credit card. I'm worried about paying rent and a car payment and gas and utilities. I couldn't pay a credit card. And so I finally opened up all this mail, made a spreadsheet of all this debt. And I mean, it was like $502,000. And I was like, oh my gosh. But okay, I'm facing it. And once I started calling places, most places had written it off as a bad debt. So then, that 500K ended up turning into like 100K. So it wasn't as bad as I thought. um, Companies are always willing to make arrangements with you. You just can't go rogue and be MIA. I mean, that's when, the threats and everything start coming. But, you know, they may not be as compassionate as you'd like them to be. And of course, everybody wants their money. It's a chain reaction. If you don't pay them, then they can't pay their employees, and their employees can't take care of their families, on and on and on. But people are willing to work with you, especially the IRS. A lot of people don't believe that, but they want to answer your phone. They want to hear from you.
Yeah,
And
most creditors want money.
yeah,
They don't want to sue, they don't want to go
right,
after
right,
people, they don't want to be mean. They want money.
right, right. And they're willing to negotiate debt down because they know that the interest and late fees and everything that they charge are a joke. So at the end of the day, the principal, long as you can kind of pay that. And that's what, when they're talking about the, oh, we'll negotiate it down, really what they're doing is they're taking off all those, I call them BS line items that they put on, that they know that these aren't important. This is just what we charged them, so they're still getting their principal back. But if we start having those honest conversations, I feel like the mood around talking about debt and finance in general um, can bring a more positive light to it, because then you're not so embarrassed and shameful and just fearful.
Yeah, and I was actually, that's a good point you bring up, because it's something that happens to all of us. I mean, even today, as I was getting into the office and getting set up, preparing for the recording, I had this flood of emails come in, and I just felt overwhelmed by the amount of work I had to do.
Hmm.
And so I finally told myself, stop, take a break. I got up. I forced myself to go to the restroom and go to the bathroom, just not because I really had to go, but
Yeah.
just because I wanted to break that mindset of, oh
Hmm.
my gosh, everybody's emailing me and I'm falling behind on this and I got to do that and I got this task and that project and this and that and the other. When you bury your head in the sand, you literally lose sight of that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And it's the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So just knock out the next email and then knock
Hmm.
out the next email, knock
Hmm.
out the minimum payment you can make, knock out
Hmm.
the biggest debt, call the first creditor and settle with them. And then you can call the second one. And
Hmm.
then if all else fails, from a financial perspective, you've got bankruptcy to fall on, as an option of last resort. But in my mind, it's not as bad as it seems. One
Never.
bite at a time,
Hmm.
and take that first step forward.
Right. Right. I totally agree. I like I said, the when I filed bankruptcy, the attorney was so mad, and he's like, "You don't even have enough debt to declare bankruptcy. Like he's can you borrow money from somebody? Can you do anything? Like can you?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, what he didn't understand was the underlying issues, and I love that conversation of your issues have issues, and so no, I couldn't go and get a car loan because, my credit was messed up. I
Right.
could not, do this because of this, like you're making it sound so, oh, well, why are you filing bankruptcy to keep a car? Because this is the only way I can keep the car.
Right. Well, and I do feel compelled to say that I don't think it's proper under the bankruptcy code for an attorney to advise a client to incur more debt to, quote, look better for filing a bankruptcy. So I don't know that that's ever advice, that I would necessarily give. But at the same time, I agree with you. When a client of mine gets their discharge,
Hmm.
in the bankruptcy case, we send them a letter that also says, "Hey, here's your discharge. Congratulations.
Hmm.
Now, here are some things you can do to avoid becoming a repeat client." And it happens from time to
Yeah.
time. Bankruptcy, good people make bad decisions, and I get it, and it happens. But there are some tips, there are some tricks, there are some things you can do to rebuild your credit, to avoid
Hmm.
coming back, to get into budgeting, to listen to the Crushing Debt podcast, to go on your website, to read your materials, to read your book, to do all that other. There are a ton of materials out there to help people,
Hmm.
which kind of brings me to my next question, which was, okay, I've got this platform of the podcast, and the whole goal of the podcast, as the podcast has grown, it's kind of morphed into this concept of, how do we help people get out of that negative mindset, eliminate their debt, whether
Hmm.
that's negotiating it, whether that's building a business, whether that's bankruptcy, whatever. How do we? So, what do we do as leaders, as influencers, as podcast hosts, as human beings? What can we do to help people that we see that may be in that vulnerable position?
Um, First, I just tell people, I mean, you have to decide that you're going to be honest and face this first, because, without that denial, running from it, like you said, head in the sand, I mean, we're not going to get anywhere. And so that moment of honesty is everything. And just being honest with yourself that you don't know it all, or admitting that you are in debt, or that you do need help, or that you don't have all this figured out. that changes everything, because then you're open to the advice and the tools and everything that people like us have to offer. And then for me, it is 100% compassion, because I actually have been through it. And so I can 1000% relate. And let me break this down into pieces, instead of looking at, oh, I have all this debt, I've got school loans and credit cards, and everybody's calling. Okay, well, let's go one by one and see really what's going on. Because I found that once you do start calling places, I mean, I had companies laugh me off the phone because they were like, we wrote this off as a bad debt. And I'm like, oh, well, but I can pay now. Like, I was calling to make good on it. And
Right.
they're like, no, we got rid of this back in the 90s. I'm like, "Oh." But I wanted to pay it. But, breaking it down piece by piece, and just those tools, I think that all of us, um, because we almost have like an inner network in the financial services industry, there are so many tools that we can offer, but you can't help anybody that won't at least admit that they need help first, and be honest about it, and be serious about fixing their situation. Um, because we don't want you to be in debt. I mean, we want to help you get out of debt, or whatever it is that you're going through, and we don't want you to be here again. But you do have to be open to receive the advice. And then it becomes, like I said, I mean, you got to know your numbers. You should know what your checking account balance is, at least on a weekly basis.
Right.
You should know where you're at in your budget on a weekly basis, a monthly budget.
Right.
You should know how much is coming in and going out. You should know these things. You don't just, get a check, spend money, and then, oh, well, uh, an emergency happens and you don't, now you're underwater because of it. Now more than ever, regardless of the big, beautiful bill, everybody needs to be focused on a emergency fund. Because from my experience, and that was like my biggest downfall, all the ebbs and flows that I had, the constant cycle of debt that I was in the past, it was because I did not have that safety net. I had nothing, no kind of savings. And I mean, you start small. I mean, you'd be surprised at how fast $25 a week can grow in a high yield savings. And I tell this to clients every year. I mean, I'm sure people get tired of me, but they're doing it. And I said, okay, just like how your company is withholding taxes and they're automatically taking it out of your check. There's probably not a company in America that you can't go to HR or log into, ADP or People Center or any of that, where they'll let you put 2 or 3 different deposit accounts on there. And just like your withholdings is going to the IRS and to your state department for taxes, you can put $25 a week, $50 a week, $100 a week, or whatever it is, where it doesn't even go in your hands. You don't even have to mindfully make that decision once you get paid to go and invest the money and put it away. It's automatically doing it. Um,
Right.
High yield interest rates are crazy right now. Like, I mean, that and CDs, we've never had CD terms as short as we've had right now, and the interest be so high. So I feel like, I mean, make that money while it's here, because it could go back to 0.01% one day. So, but just small changes like that. You're not going to miss
Yeah.
$25 out of a paycheck. You're not.
No, and George and I have talked about this a lot. I mean, whether it's $25 a week, whether it's $25 a month,
Hmm.
put something away and
Right.
start low and
Hmm.
have it automatic so that
Hmm.
you get used to it not being in your paycheck, and then
Right.
you can grow it from there. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's absolutely a strategy that George and I have talked about, that we both use. I use it individually. I did want to give out your contact information. So your website is bymichellecampbell.com, and I'll put that in the notes. Michelle has 2 L's in it. Campbell has 2 L's in it. Bymichellecampbell.com. You're also available on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. So I'll put all those social media connections on there. Um,
Right.
before I let you go, one last question that I have for you. Um, is there anything we didn't talk about? Is there anything you want to add, or maybe to put it another way, if there's a listener out there that is struggling financially, what's one thing you would want them to know or focus on right now?
You're not alone, and start where you are. There is no perfect place to start, so just start where you are. That saving a little bit of money out of each paycheck goes a long way. It's out of sight, it's out of mind. It's already being, almost invested for you. And just know your numbers. I can't stress that enough. I mean, there's free credit reports on annualcreditreport.com that everybody's entitled to annually. Find out what your credit score is first. Find out how much debt you have. Find out if your credit report is accurate. Find out how much you're paying in interest. I mean, I've switched utility companies because I'm going to get a cheaper rate. And
Right.
just things like that. So start where you are, but first just know your numbers, and you're not alone. On social media, everybody says that they're keeping it 100, and I'm thinking, no, they're not, because how do we know that you on that yacht, you didn't just max out a credit card to take a picture of the good moment, and now you're upside down from making it look fancy on social media. So don't compare yourself. Everybody is or will be or has gone through it, so you're definitely not alone. But you don't know that because we're not talking about it. So have those honest conversations with the people that you love and trust. And I feel like that's where you'll find the compassion and the support to help your situation as well.
Nice. Well, I really appreciate you being a guest on this week's show. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Yeah. And we'll George, we missed you. And maybe Michelle will have you back on when George can be here to
Yeah, we'll have
pepper
to.
you with questions.
Yeah, we'll go
But
back through the big beautiful bill in detail.
yeah, I don't know that anybody's going to know the big beautiful bill in detail. I doubt the people that
Not for a
wrote
while.
the thing know the big beautiful bill in detail. And
Yeah, not for a
it's
while.
not a that's not a political comment at all. That's more a comment on our legislature that I don't know how many of our legislators actually read cover to cover the laws that they're thinking to
Right,
enact. But
right.
that's a larger uh
No conversation.
criticism of our elected officials than anything else. So I do want to remind you all listeners that if you want to help us out, you can always go to patreon.com/crushing debt. You can help us out there. A lot of the behind the scenes videos and whatnot are up on the Patreon page. And so George and I really appreciate your support there. Thank you again to Michelle Campbell and talking to us about all this stuff, debt and mindset and the big beautiful bill and taxes and all that stuff. I really appreciate your input on this week's show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely. And George, we will see you next week. And then for the rest of the listeners, we will also hear you or we'll be on your podcast players next week with another episode of the Crushing Debt podcast. Thank you again to Michelle, where at the end of the show, I like to say that we hope you have more money at the end of the month rather than month at the end of the money. And we'll talk to you in next week's episode.